Hello and welcome to Off the Tangent podcast with me, Zak Bream. I'm very excited to be joined today by Peter Bell. He has spent a lot of his life devoted to Christianity and God, and he is very proactive in his community, working with asylum seekers and refugees here in the UK. Today we're going to look at things from his missionary work in Zimbabwe, where he worked to build a school, and then also his experiences visiting Pakistan and working with Christians in those countries, and his near-death experiences in Pakistan. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and thank you. I wanted to start off by talking today about some of the volunteering and sort of missionary work you've done in other countries with sort of religion. So I know that you've gone to places like Pakistan and you've sort of volunteered and helped out there. Can you tell me a little bit about what sort of work you were doing out there and why you went?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was through friendships with other Christians that I was invited to go to the countries that I will probably be mentioning in a few moments. Pakistan was through two friendships with Pakistani Christians. So they invited me to go over and visit them and visit their extended families in different cities in Pakistan. So it's from their invitation that I went. As a Christian, I went and they invited me on the basis of me being able to meet with other Christians, be able to share my faith with others and encourage others who I'd never met before in different cities, but who loved Jesus. So that's on the basis that I went there. Whilst I was there, I did see quite a lot of needy people in the Christian community. It opened my eyes to the world around me because I have many, I've had many Muslim and Christian Pakistani friends over the years. So to actually go to the country that their families came from originally was a blessing in disguise in many ways, because it helped the context of where they were coming from, what their lives were like, etc. So to me, you can read books, but to actually be there and experience it yourself was wonderful. So not only just tasting the food, but also experiencing the fragility of life when you are living amongst the poor, those who have very little, and really it makes you look at your life and what we do take for granted here. That's what I was thinking as I was experiencing what it's like to go to a toilet when there's just a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
What it was like to get your water just from one tap that was used by up to 50 people. Things like that we take for granted, suddenly in those situations became very different. So those were two visits to Pakistan that I went in 2003 and 2005.
And did you feel that when you were there, what were some of the moments that stood out for you that you really sort of felt like, wow, we have it so differently here in the UK? Was there things that you saw that really that you felt that feeling?
Yeah, I think if you we all like a good moan. And often it's either about the weather, or it's either about the NHS, or it's things like this that we moan about. But when you're there and you realize I was living in the villages as well as the cities, and the medical help was not, as it were, a phone call away. I was living in a village where there was no reception for my mobile phone, and there was only one phone, and you could ring out from that in the one shop in a village in the middle of nowhere. and you had to book that call. So even something like that, and the hospital was 2 hours drive away if you could get a vehicle. So those things became, you realize that life can change very quickly if somebody is sick and you
Yeah,
can't get hold of medicine.
absolutely. I was speaking to one of our mutual friends, David, the other day, and he's from Nigeria, and he was telling me about how when he was younger, he broke his hand. I believe it was his hand, and he was telling me when people broke their bones in Nigeria, they don't really go to the hospital. They'll call someone in the village who's called like the bone doctor, like the bone setter, and they'll come, and they'll get some sticks and sort of like if it's your arm, they'll get the sticks and they'll wrap it around, and I just, David was painting this picture of it for me, of sort of like, it's not like us will just happily go to the hospital, get an X-ray, they'll sort out and get a cast. For him, it's like, it's like they've got some sticks and some bandages and there's some guy in the village, and it's just so much more concerning almost when something like that happens. You just be so much more worried that, is it going to fix? Like you don't know with as much certainty that you're going to be okay, and that must be quite difficult
Yeah.
as well.
And on those two occasions that I went to Pakistan, on both occasions I was seriously ill. I became seriously ill. One from like the water that you were drinking. I must have picked up some water from a shower that I had onto my lips, and I was seriously ill that night. I collapsed. The family didn't know what to do.
Wow.
Fortunately, they had a neighbor next door who was a Christian family, lived next door. He was a pharmacist. He was able to come and put an intravenous in my arm. And if you're in those kind of countries, putting something inside you is not recommended because you don't know whether that needle has been used before
Wow.
by somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's as serious as that. But I trusted that, God would help me, protect me, and heal me because it was a very difficult. I can remember that my throat swelled up. I could not swallow. I was struggling to breathe. The family didn't know what to do. Just were praying and praying. And this man came and put some liquid, some saline into my arms, something to give me help me from dehydrating. But I knew that it was only God who could do the healing
Mm.
because we had no other medical help other than this drip. But 24 hours later, I was in another city.
God.
I was taken to another meeting in another city and
What
was able to meet.
you were healed in those 24 hours?
Yes, yeah.
Wow. And what
In
was
those,
it that they put in your arm? What was that?
as far as I know, it was just a saline drip. He just put a drip in,
Mm.
a saline drip, nothing, no antibiotics or anything like that.
Wow.
Um,
That
so
must have been quite scary for you.
it was, quite scary, and that was the first trip in 2003, and in 2005, it was quite a difficult situation again, because the same thing happened, but I knew that only God could help because the medical help was not there.
Mm.
And it's that kind of fragility. When I looked around me where I was staying in 2005, the wiring was loose on the wall. If you accidentally touched any of the wiring, you would have got a blast.
Yeah.
It was as dangerous as that. I was living next door to a big, huge swamp of effluent
Mm.
coming from the toilets that was just in the middle of the village, and I was next to it. So it's this kind of environment. But can I say that I met some of the most wonderful people in the midst of those kind of conditions? I met some amazing young people, families, tremendous people of God. And, wherever I've been, even in conditions similar to that, in Africa, and elsewhere, I've always met wonderful people, some who have loved Jesus, have been serious about knowing God, some who, just wanted to find out more from me, on their life journey. And it was just the overwhelming impression on me is that, if you want to step out of your comfort zone, you want to see not just the world by, beautiful beaches and whatever, find those beautiful places where you can help others, where you can serve and help those who have nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I went to India for 2 weeks with my girlfriend. So a lot of the sort of like imagery you're describing, like I can very much relate to, sort of the wires, hanging loose everywhere, and me and my girlfriend got extremely ill as well because the people are very kind in India. They're very like giving, and they treat you very well. And we had a taxi driver who, he said to us, he was like, "Oh, have you guys had iced coffee before?" And we were like, "Oh yeah, we've tried that." And he's like, "Oh, you haven't had Indian iced coffee before? Please let me buy it for you." And we were like, "Okay, that sounds nice." And he took us to this stall, and we saw the stall, and first of all, they tell you you're not supposed to have ice because in general,
That's
when
a
you
don't do it.
that's a big no-no when going to any of these countries. You don't have ice because it's got a lot of bacteria in there. It's really deadly bacteria. So already, me and my girlfriend were like, we just arrived in India, so we felt like embarrassed to say no, and we had kind of said no, and he was like, "Oh, come on, I'll get it for you. It's okay." So then we were like, we get to this stall, and then we were kind of like, "All right, we'll just have one between us to share," and then we said that to the guy, and then we get there and we see the stall, and there's 20 cups, and they're pre-made, and there was just flies just crawling all over me, and I was just like, I couldn't believe the situation I was in, but I was so overwhelmed by everything that was going on. Me and my girlfriend were like, you know what, screw it, we're just gonna accept it, and I'm sure it'll be okay. Everything will work out. So we drank it, and I can tell you the next day it did not work out. We were so ill for like 4 days, like literally couldn't leave the hotel room. So ridiculously ill. And we had a train booked, like a 16-hour sleeper train booked to another city. And we were like, we can't miss this because we had so many things booked after it. So we were like, okay, we're just going to go. And my poor girlfriend was I got better at this point, but she was still so sick on the train. And on this train, people expect, a normal toilet or something. And it was just a hole. You go into the bathroom, and it was literally just a hole in the floor, and you can see the tracks as the train's going. You can see the tracks, and my poor girlfriend was like having to be sick out of this hole, and it was it just completely wakes you up to just what is going on. I was so naive before going to this country, and you're just overwhelmingly shocked by the ridiculous culture difference and the different facilities and everything and how much we have. So yeah, I can completely empathize with the being sick and everything because we fully went through that too. And honestly, afterwards, we were so worried about anything. Literally, I did not want to touch any food after that. I was so concerned about getting sick. Like we were at this hotel, and it was a nice hotel. Like after we moved to a different city, and it was a breakfast buffet, and they had loads of like Indian curries and stuff. And I was just looking at it, I was like, I'm so worried.
What can I eat?
I just had a piece of bread. I literally had one slice of bread. That's all I had. But eventually I plucked up some courage and started eating some good food again. Until later on the trip, we were craving Western food, so we went to McDonald's. we went to McDonald's, and we ordered a drink. And you'll never believe this, they had ice in the drink again. And I'm like, surely it's from a McDonald's, the ice would be clean. No, we got ill all over again. It never ended, but yeah.
but that's how I got ill the first time in Pakistan, because my adopted son went with me, and it was his birthday whilst we were there. So the family wanted to take us for a family meal, and the restaurant that my son wanted to go to looked like the McDonald logo. It had it on the outside. So he said, I want to go there.
Yeah.
So we went there, and they had burger, and they had drinks, and they had chips. So we ate that, but that night it must have been something either in the burger or the chips or the drink.
Oh no. Oh,
So don't be taken in by signs like that look Western and attached to them kind of hygienic protocols. No.
yeah, it
Uh,
doesn't work like that.
no.
So that
So
the first
yeah,
time you got sick, were you worried
yeah.
the second time about going back that something similar might happen?
No, I felt that if if God had brought me through once, He'd be able to bring me through again.
Yeah.
So of course, you're always a bit apprehensive, and you should be. These places, you, you know, it's a big subject, isn't it, about health and whatever, but you can't naively go into those places because you're going to come unstuck. And I trusted people who lived there, who knew what it was like, who knew what kind of safety procedures needed to be in place for me, as a naive Englishman, 6 foot Englishman. I don't blend in easily, so I'm always going to stand out. No matter what I wear, unless I put a paper bag over my head. So I trusted that they would know how to look after me, guide me, provide what I needed, and as well as that, my son as well, who was with me.
Yeah, I think that was good that you had like your sort of support network and people that live there and their families
Yes,
like guided you through that almost.
yeah, and that was the second time I went, because the same family attend the church that I'm currently at. I knew the family. I'd known them for many years. They were the extended family, and we were visiting them in different cities. I was traveling on 17-hour train journeys with a hole in the floor in the train.
Yeah.
Trying not to go to the toilet, trying, to, best look after yourself. But I'm constantly reminded that it was God who was taking me there for His glory, and He would not leave me alone on the platform station whilst I went on the train.
Yeah.
He would still be there for me, and He was the one that I could trust in, even though you are apprehensive. You're in the midst of a sea of faces that you don't know, and you are the only white guy there with a boy, with a son, and I want to be in a safe place. But I reminded when I was at Karachi airport, and somebody tried to steal my bags, and it makes you feel very vulnerable, and then the people have taken your money, you're left with nothing. And I remember saying to God, I have nothing. I've got nothing to give us, get a drink for my son. We're here. We're going to have to wait hours for the airport, for the plane to go home to Manchester from Karachi. And then when I entered the airport lounge, I heard somebody shout out from across it, I know you. You're Peter. You're my teacher.
That's it.
And he was one of my students who'd been on holiday to
What?
visit his family in Pakistan and was traveling home. And he said, come on, let me buy you a drink. Come on, you come and sit with me. Come
Wow.
on, don't be on your own. And I knew that I just needed to trust that God would provide and look after me no matter what had happened.
Yeah, wow, what a incredible coincidence that like the other
I,
side of the world for that to happen.
I couldn't have planned that. I didn't know he was going to Pakistan. I didn't know. But
Yeah.
he saw me. He saw me at the airport lounge. He shouted over with hundreds of other people there, all turning around, looking at me. I thought, oh no, what's going to happen now?
I completely get
Oh,
I think for me, the really overwhelmingly intense thing about India, and I'm sure it's probably similar in Pakistan, is the different culture with staring and looking. Because I feel like, in the UK, if something's going on when you're a kid, your mum's sort of like, oh, don't stare, don't look. You're not supposed to stare at people. It's sort of seen as rude. But you get to India and you just walk anywhere and just everyone is staring. And literally, like, you'd be sitting on a bench and there'll just be people standing around you and they're all just staring at you. And there's no, I don't think they see it as a rude thing to do. I think it's just normal. Like, but it was intense. Like, I was with my girlfriend and we'd walk about places and it just felt like wherever we went, there was just so many people staring. And my girlfriend, like, she's from Denmark, so she's like blonde hair, blue eyes, like very light skin. So everywhere we went, like, she just always had people coming up to us asking for photos
yeah,
of her. So, like, I remember one time
yeah.
we there was a big sort of mountainous thing, and there was a cable car, and I didn't trust the cable car, so I wanted to walk up the mountain, and so we started walking up. And there was a lot of other people walking up as well. And literally, I think we only made it about 100 meters because every 10 seconds, a big group of people would stop and ask for pictures with my girlfriend. Like, loads of women would. I've got this video of filming my girlfriend. She's standing there with about 30 Indian women all around her. And one by one, they're all taking photos of her. And this happened all the time. So I think it was just a lot to do. Like, I know that's a really nice thing. But I think after 2 weeks of it, it kind of got a bit tiring. I
Yeah.
think to go back to your thing about when your bags sort of got stolen, I think, and you mentioned that it made you feel a bit vulnerable. I can really relate to that because when me and my girlfriend first arrived, we got to the airport, we got to New Delhi, we hadn't slept for about 30 hours, and we got a train to the city centre. We get off the train, and now we had to walk. Google Maps. We had to walk like 10 minutes to our hostel, and there was a bridge to get to the main market, and we go up some escalators, we try and cross this bridge, and there was three men in uniform, like that looked like official sort of train police uniforms, and they came up to us, they said, oh, you can't cross the bridge, you need a pass to go into this market. um, they said that it's a bit dangerous at the moment and you need a pass. And I just didn't know what to believe because I'd heard there's people scamming, but then they were wearing uniforms. And after 10 minutes of talking to them, I kind of trusted them. So then I said, all right, well, where do I have to go to get this pass? And they said, oh, you got to take a tuk-tuk to this place. He pointed on the map. And he's like, oh, I'll help you so you don't get scammed. So he came with me down to the tuk-tuks and said to the guy, like, pay him, 80p or something, like no money at all, to drive you to this place. And we're like, okay. So we get in the tuk-tuk and we start going. And I say to my girlfriend, I was like, you know what? I have no idea where we're going right now. We're in literally a completely foreign country in a new city. I'm so
Yeah.
overwhelmed. I hadn't slept for 30 hours. And, I said to my girlfriend, I was like, all right, look, here's what we're going to do. They've said it's a government building and they need to give us a pass. If we get there and it's a grand building, and, I'll trust it and we'll move on and we'll go in and sort it out. And so we drive in this tuk-tuk for like 5 minutes, and he literally drives up to a shack, and we get out and there's a little shed with men outside playing dominoes on a table, and they see us pull up and they just instantly stop playing dominoes and run into the shed. They all go in. And then the driver's like, yeah, there's the building that you want. And I'm like, I said to my girlfriend, I was like, I'm not going in there. Whatever happens, I'm not going in that room. So, I was like, let's leave. So now I'm trying to pay the driver, and it was 80 rupees. And I'm trying to give him the money. And he's like, no, we said 400. We said 400. I'm like, oh, yeah. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, no, we said 80. Take the 80. He's like, no, 400. I said, listen, you take the money now, or I'm just going to leave. Like, you just get nothing. So I was like, I just put it in his hand. We just walked away. But then these guys that went into the shed, the sort of shack thing, they came out and then they started following us down the road. So me and my girlfriend are like walking away. We're trying to speed walk and like leave. And now they're following us and they're on their phone calling people. And I'm like, who are they calling? Like, are they calling someone to try and get us? I was proper stressed out. I was proper stressed out. Anyway, like, long story short, we walked for like 10 minutes. We got into the market. We found a hostel. I felt a bit safe. But that whole situation, I felt so vulnerable in, and I couldn't really shake it. Like, I think you were really lucky that you had this sort of support network around you. But I think if I would say to people that anyone goes to these countries, like if you go to India, you go to Pakistan, like they should go with people. Maybe if they know some locals or something, or as a group. Because me just going with my girlfriend, I just felt like, I don't know what was going on. I didn't know if it was safe and what wasn't safe. And so I think that definitely made me feel quite vulnerable for the rest of the trip. And I felt a lot more relaxed when I was, when I was leaving, and I was like, okay, I know what's safe now, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've also been to places like, did you say Zambia that you've also been to? Where was it in Africa?
Yes. Yeah.
What was it like going there?
We went with a Christian organization called Mission Direct in 2008, and I and my wife and adopted son went to join a group of Christians from different parts of the UK, from different churches, with a focus on helping in a poor area of Lusaka, and to build an extension to a school. The school had 3 toilets for 200, 300 children, and it was an ex-bungalow that somebody, an ex-missionaries had left to the area for the school. So it was 3 rooms, 300 children, 3 toilets.
Wow.
So Mission Direct were involved in the project of extending it, doubling the size of the school and adding in another 3 toilets. So we were part of a team of 20, 25 people who went, and we stayed there 2 weeks. And for all of those 2 weeks, every day except Sunday, we will be working on helping to build that extension, knock down walls, decorate, paint, do whatever during those time. And as well as that, we lived in an enclosed area with security, because again, this vulnerability, you've got to consider that, are you safe or not? And we were in a safe area with security. And when we were in the afternoons, we would work in the morning, we would work mid-afternoon, and then we'd be allowed some hours to be able to visit some different projects that Zambian Christians were involved in to help the babies that were left on the streets, the children, mostly boys, that were just left, and people who were working amongst those who were terminally ill, those who were drug addicted, those who were needing vocational training. So we got a number of opportunities to be able to visit projects that Zambian Christians were involved in to help other Zambians.
How effective do you think a lot of this help is for the Zambian people, in your experience?
I think if it is effective when it helps the Zambian people, or any people, become able to be self-sufficient, reliant on what they can do, what they can make, what they can grow, with sometimes some of the added support from outside in whatever way, but not to be dependent on those outside, if at all possible. It's about for them to be able to be maintaining some semblance of independence and be able to look after themselves. And that's what we saw, that people did want to work, people did want to grow their own vegetables. People did want, they just needed stability in their lives. They just needed the knowledge, the expertise, etc. And they just needed somebody to come alongside to be able to give that. And that's what we felt we were like. That didn't stop people seeing us or the work that we were doing as a charity as being something that they could take. Because I remember the second week we'd had our own tools and whatever to to build the extension, and we had Zambian builders working with us, and a wonderful man of God who was leading the team. But at the beginning of the second week, we found out that all our tools had been stolen overnight. All of them gone. So somebody had been and seen what they were and then just stole them. So we had to think then about getting new tools, where that were going to come from, how that was going to hold things up and whatever. But this is the real picture of what life is like. When people are desperate, it doesn't matter where you are in the world or what you've got or what you feel you haven't got. There are some people you've got more, whatever it is.
And what happened after the tools were stolen? Did you manage to finish the
We
project?
managed to, yes, we managed to get replace the tools, because they are available in those countries, but they are so expensive. I mean, we went one afternoon to outside of the area that we were living after we'd finished, and visited what was a gated supermarket.
Wow.
I can tell you, this supermarket was the Asda in Zambia, in Lusaka. It was just like a normal Asda.
Yeah.
It sold exactly the same,
Wow.
but the prices were astronomical compared to what life was like outside in Zambia. It was like a year's wages for a bag of chips or something like that. It was astronomical, the prices, the difference. But there were people who could afford that. But whilst we were in there looking, because we didn't eat that kind of food, we had some chefs from Zimbabwe, lovely ladies who were cooking our food for us. But whilst we were there was a power cutout, and suddenly the gates of the supermarket area shut. All the windows guards came down,
Really?
and armed guards came out with their machine guns and stood at the gates to stop anybody coming in and making. That was the difference. They had to protect what they had from those outside of.
Yeah.
That was, for us, that was traumatic, because we saw that was the big difference between those who have and those who have not. And we came back, it just made us feel sick. That there is wealth in countries, but when that wealth is held on to a small minority and the majority of people are living hand to mouth on the street, that just made us feel sick that this was there happening on our doorstep.
I think one of the hardest things for me to see in those countries is like children workers. You might see like 4-year-old, 5-year-old kids roaming the street up until like 1 a.m, trying to sell little goods or just begging, sort of thing. I think that was quite hard to see in India and Vietnam, because it feels like, it's difficult because it feels like you don't know the situation of the family, but then it also feels like the parents are sort of having the kids to raise money because people feel sorry for, like, a lot of the tourists will feel sorry for the kids and then give the kids money. So it's almost like a cycle of the parents having more kids to try and get money, when they already can't afford the kids they have. It's really difficult to see. So in that Zambian supermarket, how long do you think you were in there with all the shutters closed and everything sort
It
of?
was only about 10, 15 minutes. And then the electricity supply came back on and the shutters went up again and we were able to leave. But it was just this, yeah, it's quite a traumatic experience to be in a situation like that. Because you've been working, we went on a feeding program, with 300 children, and we were giving out half an apple, half a banana, and a bowl of porridge, and that was their meal for the day. And we were invited to go into where the children were having a semblance of education. 300 children in one room, and they were joyous. They were singing to us, and you have these memories of that, and then of this that came right after it. It was just two extremes, that so easily it's just overwhelming. You're overwhelmed by humanity, by the things that, it doesn't seem fair. And when you feel like that, you you can do something. There's something you can do. You could have a choice of either standing away and saying, "Oh, well, that is bad, isn't it?" and just reading it on the news or whatever. But you've got a choice. You could go and do something that will make a difference. It may be making a difference just in one life. But if it's just one life, then go and do it.
Do you think this is because I wanted to talk to you about, if you thought that everyone sort of has a purpose on this earth, and do you think that your sort of purpose is to help as many people as you can? Like, I know you run a class, you run a lot of classes, but I seem to remember at the church over there you mentioned you have like an arts and crafts one for a lot of people to come, and is it with refugees as well, or people that the English might not be great? What was that for?
Well, since 1983, I've known asylum seekers and refugees. So way before you were born, Zach.
Yeah.
Uh, the purpose for me is not me feeling good. The purpose for me has always been knowing God, knowing who God is, why I am here. That was my question that was going round in my head early on in the 1980s after somebody had spoken to me about Jesus. And the searching began when I came to faith in Jesus. I realized that the purpose was for me to know God, always to know God personally, not to know about God, which is knowledge, which is religion, interesting, get degrees and qualifications, become a teacher even. I could help every person, but is there enough hours in a day to help? There'll always be the poor there. But I knew deep in my heart I needed to be right. There was something missing. And when I found that Jesus was the missing piece in my life, I knew that I had a purpose. And the purpose was to share not just the truth of who Jesus is, the Word of God, but to show it by my life. Because Jesus tells his followers, go out and do the same. Go out and help the poor. Go out, don't just speak it, live it. Go and help others, whoever they may be. So from the word go, that was always on my heart. They went together. If I know the truth makes a difference. If Jesus is the truth, he makes a difference in my life. He's the one who will guide me.
Mm.
He will help me to be put in those places where I can guide and help others. And basically, Zach, from 1982, that's what's been happening. So yes, I've been involved with asylum seekers. And asylum seekers from all over the world, many, many countries, even that were represented today in the church service that I was at today on Easter Sunday. And it's been a joy and a privilege to go to some of the countries that those people have come from. You mentioned that man, David.
Yeah.
I haven't been to his country yet, but I've always longed to go to that country very early on in my life.
Mm.
But there's been many other countries that I've been to around Europe, Turkey, Pakistan, as we said, Zimbabwe. I only touched Zimbabwe, but Zambia was where we were there for 2 weeks, and other places like Mexico and even America. And
So I just want to ask about this idea of, for you, you're talking about sort of living what Jesus teaches.
yeah,
Does that mean that you sort of think that most people should be living and doing good actions? That should be their sort of purpose, is helping people who are less fortunate than ourselves?
all I'm saying is, when you ask me for my when it comes to purpose in my life, this is what has happened in my life. I think that question is for other people about what is happening in their life that gives them purpose, direction, energy, focus, whatever. For me, this is the purpose that gives me peace with God. And from the word go, I knew that because I had peace with God through faith in Jesus as my Lord and Savior, then He would direct me through His Holy Spirit to take me to the places where He wants me to go.
Mm.
Sometimes they're not always the places I would willingly go, not just in the UK, but in other countries as well, especially when they're sometimes unknown areas. But I trust God that He knows the best for me. But I go not through my own desires. The impetus comes from my faith in God doing the leading. I fit into His plan rather than God fitting into my plan and rubber stamping what I want to do.
Yeah.
So it's not the bucket list of what Peter wants to do. It's what does God want you to do, His bucket list for
Yeah.
me whilst I'm here on the earth before He takes me home to heaven.
Mm.
What does He want me still to do? So whether it's meeting with you, Zak, who I haven't known very long, have I, Zak?
No, no. Just probably a month, I think.
I've known about you, Zak, through your friend David.
Yes.
But we haven't known each other very long. But I feel as though we have known each other a long time
Mm.
because you're on that journey. You're on that journey.
This is, yeah, I think that one of the things that really struck me about the church community. So I have not been religious most of my life, and so then therefore I've not been grown up in a religious environment. So
Praise God.
so I hadn't met many of those people,
Neither have I, Zak. Neither have I.
and I think it's been so fascinating, because it's like one. Okay, so when I think 3 or 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I went solo traveling for the first time. And I took trains around Europe for like a month, and that's where I met my girlfriend. But the thing that just kind of blew me away was how open and welcoming the individuals I met were. Like the people that I met who, decided to go traveling or were by themselves in a foreign country from all around the world, and they were in this random country with me. They were just so kind and, would just be so friendly immediately. And it was just so different from, growing up in your hometown, or when you meet people that maybe there's like a wall, and you can't get past that without maybe knowing someone for a long time. But people I met traveling, they'd immediately be open. So I've always thought, oh, it's just people that are just go traveling maybe or something like that. But then when I first started going to church like 2 months ago, I found that everyone I spoke to reminded me of those people that I met while traveling, who just are so willing and open to just, welcome you in to their community and treat you like you've been friends for years, sort of thing. And I think that there's something so special about that. Why is it that you think people are like that in the church?
Um, I can't speak for other people. All I know is that within our community, our Christian community, and wherever I have gone into those Christian communities in Turkey, in Pakistan, in other countries, I know the difference between those who love Jesus and those who are just there out of duty, religion. They've come because they've been brought up in a Christian home, and they seem to don't have the same joy of knowing Jesus, and that's even when you don't speak the same language. This is the interesting thing, that whenever I've gone to places and other people have said, "Oh, you're going to Pakistan, but you don't speak Urdu," and I said, "No, so." Or you're going to Zambia. Oh, well, they speak English there, so you'll be okay. Well, why does that make a difference? It's not about, you know, looking at the physical ways of language. It's about knowing that if God is taking you somewhere, He will provide. I've never in years of teaching, for example, the Bible in English to people from 7 different language groups who don't speak English or very little English. There's always been somebody who knows a little bit more English who can translate for someone else, and there's always been the way in which God will still communicate something of His truth, of His love, of His salvation to people. And I just fit into that. I don't know how it works. I don't have it written down. I can't choreograph it. I just see God at work speaking to people, whether it's through their love for one another, which is very biblical, because that's what Jesus expects his people to show, love for each other, so that others can come into that environment of the love of God within that body of believers. None of us are perfect. We know that. God knows that. But when we declare Jesus is Lord and we are fully trusting in Him, He should make a difference in how we treat each other, in how we live for His glory, in how we treat the stranger who comes in. And that's what I look at, the stranger who comes in. Who's going to welcome him? Who's going to pray with him? Who's going to show some compassion and understanding? And it's got to be us who do that, because that's what Jesus wants us to do. We've got to be the ones who reach out a hand to those who are outside.
So thinking back for you and your life before you found Christianity.
Before I was prompted by God, yes.
Indeed,
1982, my wife's birthday.
And before
1982.
you found Jesus or
Yeah.
any of this,
Yeah.
did you have an alternate religion? Were you spiritual? Were you searching?
No,
What do you think for
no.
you? What was life like before that?
I'd been on my brother-in-law is a Christian, committed Christian, and he had been attending a local church, and he came to our house. I was married to his sister, his older sister, and he came and he started talking about Jesus. This was totally alien to me, Zach. Totally alien. Because my background is atheism. I was not in any way connected to any church. And my family avoided anything to do with church. So it was completely out of the blue. But I had an interest in, science fiction, in this kind of spiritual dimension, this otherworldly things. So I and my wife had a kind of an interest in it. But when he presented Jesus to us and told us about God's love for us, I kind of was quite angry.
Why did it make you angry?
Because I was totally unprepared in my own house. I wasn't expecting a discussion like that.
What, because you
Uh,
came from this atheist background, you saw it as like
yes,
an attack to atheism?
it wasn't. It was an attack on me and my life, my way of, what I thought was life. I had a family, I had a house, I had a car, I had a job, I had all these milestones, as it were, this bucket list ticked off. But I still, underneath it, didn't have peace with God. I had this gaping hole, and it was as if the hole was being revealed out into the open, the emptiness. It seemed like emptiness compared to what he was talking about. So
Mm.
that was the challenge. It challenged my emptiness.
And when did it turn away from anger to maybe curiosity?
When he'd left, and I'd slept on it. And then I went to work, and then I started thinking about it. So I started asking other people, friends from other religions, people who were connected, who worked with me. So it started a journey of asking questions, seeking, looking,
Mm.
seeing how, their religion affected them or didn't. Listen, and it was that kind of searching, and then it taking me to actually crossing the threshold of a church, two churches, three churches, and then discovering that God was speaking now, not a God who was out there, but a God who was personal. I could, as if it were, hear the voice of God just telling me, to listen, to slow down, to stop.
And do you think it was a slow build up of belief, or do you think there was something that just suddenly made you I
It
can
was,
now?
yeah, yeah. It wasn't. It was the awareness of questions being left there unanswered, but then showing me that road didn't seem right. That road didn't seem. That was not going to lead me anywhere. That was not going to lead me anywhere. I was wanting to get on the road, the right road, and it wasn't until the right road was presented to me. And I said to you last week that there was a book by an unusual author that I have up here, and I read this opening pages
Mm.
in the 3rd of February 1982, and it was if God was personally sending a letter to me and showing me all of my life, all the things that I've been hoping for, all the things that I wanted suddenly was being revealed in this letter personally from God. And it just I just couldn't go any farther. I remember to this day it was 6:30 on the 3rd of February with my wife sitting in one chair, our daughter asleep upstairs, and me saying, I don't know what this is all about. I need help. I need to know what this is about. And she said, and my wife saying, go to this meeting, go to this church, that you'll find something there. And she didn't know, but she knew the meeting was on. And that's when I was presented with Jesus, who was real and personal to me, that I needed to do something about it by making a decision to follow Jesus, to know who Jesus was, that he died for my sin, and that I could know God's forgiveness and that peace with God that is beyond understanding. And I felt then at 9 o'clock on that night, peace with God that is beyond understanding. It's as if the greatest gift and treasure had been given to me, and I wanted it. I wanted that
Mm.
more than anything. I didn't want to carry on like that any longer. I wanted to have, as if it were a new start, a new life. and it was there waiting for me.
And after that period, do you believe in baptism? Is that something that you sought to get once you decided that you were now a follower of Jesus and you felt that sort of love?
I didn't know what that was, Zach, because believe it or not, at that point, I had not read anything in the Bible. Shock, horror. Because the book that I showed you was one of two books that were given to me by my brother-in-law before he went to America to train at Baptist seminary and to eventually become a pastor and work there. But he gave me a Bible and that book. So I actually opened the book before the Bible.
Yeah.
Shock of horrors, no. But then, of course, I opened the Bible, and that's when, when I was mentored by someone in the church, a young man, a young couple. He was from America, and we became friends as quickly as what you and I have become friends. It was just like that. It was if we'd known each other since we were young or whatever, had
Yeah.
grown up together. It seemed like we'd known each other for way longer than what it was actually. But when you meet people like that, that's a precious gift.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've known precious jewels, gifts of friendships like that with other guys, who have been a real blessing and encouragement. Some of those blessings are still around me. But there for an old man like me, bring me inspiration and joy and thankfulness because I see them growing in their understanding of who Jesus is, of their life with God and knowing God. So I moved into this new life readily, willingly, jumping in full belt because I knew that this was a new start, and the new start was exciting. It was adventurous. It was getting to know who Jesus is, who God is. What is there a difference? No. What's the Holy Spirit about? Is he another God? No, it's the one God. Well, how do I get to know the one God then? And all the stories and everything, the Old Testament, the New Testament, and just learning more from those who are mature in their faith. That seeing how God had led them and their stories, and seeing how real he was in their lives today, years and years later. So, that's always been a joy for me to be able to see God at work in people. To this day, over the years, whichever country, seeing God at work in other people from whatever language background or religious upbringing or whatever, just seeing God at work in them. That for me has been a tremendous joy, that I'm so thankful to God for.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing to witness, especially for me at church this morning. Seeing it's like Easter Sunday, you're seeing people that went to the front to be prayed for, and for them to sort of having their struggles in life, and for them there being people to sort of pray and take them in and care for them. I think it was quite an emotional and loving thing to see. We are sort of coming towards the end, so I have like the final sort of thing I want to ask you was what do you see the next few years of life looking for you? At the moment, you sort of run classes and you read the passage today at the church. What do you see the next few years being for you? What's important for the next few years?
Well, first of all, this is the first podcast, so I want to thank you, Zach,
That's okay.
for inviting me to
It's
my first ever podcast.
been great.
For anybody who is adventurous and does watch it,
Yeah.
After the editing. I hope they get the gist of me and my faith. When it comes to the future, well, I don't know what the future will bring. All I know is that to serve Jesus is the greatest joy, no matter how many more years he gives me. And to be able to do that to the end, because I know that the journey, this is only part of the journey. My real home is with Jesus in heaven. But I want others to come with me as well. So until that day, he's given me a job to do, to keep on serving him faithfully, loving him, as it were, dearly every day, obeying him, and being able to share my faith with other people. I haven't done it. It's nothing of me. It's nothing of my goodness or my qualifications, though I have a few degrees. But it's nothing of that. It's all of Jesus and what he has done in me and continues to do. I don't have any classes. So just to make it clear to anybody who watches this, I no longer have any English classes or Bible classes anymore. I've retired from those. I do other things in the church involving asylum seekers and refugees, which is a drop-in on a Friday, which is coming up to 20 years in existence. And I'm part of the ministry team, men's ministry team, and life group leaders teams. Outside of that, if you want to, this is how we met. We met through friendship.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm meeting other people through friendship. If we get to know one another, we'll go out for a coffee. We'll have a laugh at experiences that we share, and we will do life together. And we will do life together, in my case, with Jesus alongside me, and whoever that may be. That's always been the case, whoever that may be. And I will continue, hopefully, to do that with God's help. And I'm sure, God will help you, Zak, on your journey too.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I appreciate you sharing all of your story and everything today.
A blessing, Zak.
Thank you very much.
Right, speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.
Yeah, bye.